Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, The Inked Reader. Today I am wrapping up the comics I've read in the month of August. Sorry, brain fart. So August was supposed to be an amazing month. I had kind of put on my TBR all the unread comics that I owned because I don't want to purchase too many for a couple of months at least, and so I had a fully packed TBR that went down the drain when I became obsessed with a book series, and ultimately I ended up reading maybe half of those things that were on my TBR. So I'm gonna carry over a lot of the things I've not read, and I've shown them in my TBRs, my September TBR. I've shown the ones that are gonna be carried over. So I'm still gonna wrap up the few things I've read, but just to let you know that August was unfortunately the least successful reading month in terms of comics that I had compared to my TBRs. Usually the comics I would read all of them, or maybe like not one or two. Worst case scenario, this time I didn't read half to maybe a bit more. I'm not sure. It's in my statistics. So without further ado, I'm gonna go from my least enjoyable read to my most enjoyable read. Again, they were pretty much all good reads. So last place for this month I had Godchild. Now Godchild is a manga that I became aware of when I was doing a challenge of reading the 10 most bizarre manga ever written. Came across Godchild, which to be fair wasn't that weird to begin with, and I owned this volume for ages and never got around to it. This is a bit unfortunate because this is a shoujo beat manga, but it's kind of a sub-series of a main series which I've not read, and I have no idea the story behind. So I was kind of thrown into this world following one of the descendants, I believe, of the protagonists of the first series. So some of the dynamics in these are not very clear to me. You do have this count following, they're solving actually these cases that have to do with poison and murder and stuff like that. So there is an overarching plot, while at the same time each issue you most of the times follow a crime that then being resolved by our main protagonist. I didn't mind this. I really enjoyed the art. It was okay. I liked the cases that we followed. I think that the overarching plot is just okay. It is definitely something that I'm on the fence if I want to continue on or not. I might look for used volumes, so if I find them at £1-2 I might continue on, or more wisely I might just check the prequel, so the series that comes before continuing on. I have no idea what I'm gonna do with it. For now it's gonna kind of stay on hold. What I do enjoy about these is that there is a very hinted at, it's not there for any of the volumes, so I just think eventually it might become a romance between our main protagonist and his butler. Kind of. It's here. It's this guy in here. So him and our main protagonist, I think they've got some moments where they're very sweet toward each other. Clearly they have grown together, and so I kind of here for that. I would love to see that love story beginning, and again there are small parts that makes me think that eventually it might go that way. So that is something that I might be interested in following around, but overall I'm not going to spend much money on this series just because again I think I started toward the end of a bigger series. I think it's Angel Sanctuary actually. So if you have read Angel Sanctuary by any chance, let me know what you thought about it. Is it worth going back and start from the beginning and maybe revisit these when I get to the point? Is not worth it? Let me know. Then I'm gonna put Rick and Morty. This is National Rick Poon's Family Vacation. It's volume number 5 or 6, I didn't remember. It's Rick and Morty, guys. There's not much else to say. It's the usual Rick and Morty, usually fun time, absurd times. In this one specifically we get a lot of Summer, which I really enjoy. I enjoy Summer a lot as a character. She is the kind of I don't care sassy character that I love, and there was a storyline with her and a car and a spaceship actually, and that story I found it was hilarious and very clever. So I really enjoyed this volume, as I've been enjoying Rick and Morty overall. It's like watching an episode. Then I'm gonna put Jujutsu Kaisen volume 3. This is the first time reading volume 3, so the only one I had reread was volume 1. And I enjoyed the bad guy in these. I think we are introduced to potentially a guy that is gonna stay the enemy for a while at least, or it's the guy behind some of the smaller enemies that we have met so far, and I found them quite intriguing. And I also really like the character of him. I enjoy his character a lot. So to be fair, because I'm reading so many series, which is my fault, I shouldn't, because my memory is just, yeah, I'm trying to retain so many plots, and I'm at different points in different series that some of the series I'm reading sometimes get muddled together, or I don't retain enough memories of them a few days after I finish a volume, which is my fault. I think I'm consuming things too fast. It feels a bit like a factory at this point. I will figure out a way, and this series is still on the cusp of, is it forgettable or is it something that I can actually keep up pace with? I've not decided yet, but I do generally enjoy the characters in this. It's not the most groundbreaking series, it's never gonna be like my favorite thing ever. I'm not obsessed with it, but thus far, it's quite alright. And if I can find volumes for very cheap, I'm happy to continue on. Then I'm gonna put Adventure Time, volume 7. I had a couple of these feel-good volumes. I think I carried them over from July, so that was nice, just being in the garden under the sunshine and reading something like Adventure Time, where it's just a fun, entertaining time. I must say, in this volume, I didn't love, as I usually do, the comments that the author makes at the bottom. You get some guest artists at the beginning, but then, you know, it's usual. Adventure Time art. And so at the bottom, you see here, I don't know if it's clear in the camera, but the author puts comments, and usually those are hilarious. This time I didn't care much about them. A lot of dead jokes, which are like horrible, so I didn't love those, which is something that stood out because thus far in all the 6 volumes before this, I absolutely adore them, and I think they really added more humor to a story that's already hilarious to begin with. I really enjoy the plot in this one. I enjoy how it has to do with time and appreciation of what you have, and how awful it would be to move actually very fast through time. And yeah, I really enjoyed how they resolved it. This is a middle grade graphic novel fantasy, so again, it is for a younger audience, but I found the resolution simple yet very clever. So yeah, it's Adventure Time. I always have a good time. Then I've put Morning Glories. This is one of the series I was mentioning that I absolutely love while I'm going through the process of reading it, but I can't show you this. But when I putting a volume down, moving on to read other stuff, I don't remember many things. So yeah, I'm just trying to see if I can find something that it's not too spoilery. This is a suspense thriller series, let's say that, and I have been adoring each volume, but because of the complexities that comes with it and the layers of the plot and different things you follow, let's just say these, not to give any spoilers, I am quite confused every time. However, this volume I remember more from it than some of the last couple of volumes I've read, so a few things really stood out. The Guillaume love story, alas, and I'm just gonna say alas, I adored. Like the couple, I am quite sad because of that side of the story. I really liked that couple. I also want to praise the authors of this, because at one point during the plot they talk about quantum mechanics, and I tried to understand a bit of it when I was watching Marvel movies, and I never grasped the concept of it as much as I have while reading a part of a plot in this. Quantum mechanics, the philosophy behind it was so well explained, and I was like, oh, now I understand it. Now I can actually speak about it with people, and I did. I went on and had conversation about the topic because I understood it. So thank you, that really taught me something. Then I have Vagabond Volume 3. So this contains actually 3 volumes, but these are these editions. So to be fair, initially I'd put Vagabond way lower, but then upon realizing how an impact is left, I bumped it up. So I really enjoyed the second part of this volume more than the first one. I mean, the first one is just a continuation from volume 2. I liked how that turned out to be, but it is, because it's so slow, it was so slow that I didn't lose interest, but I wasn't that pumped about it. While the second half, where we introduce the character of Yugo Nozuke, I don't know how you pronounce it, but basically he's the nephew of one of the masters that our main protagonist wants to learn from. So his nephew and the tension with Otsu, what's happening there. I really enjoyed the second, kind of probably the last volume or the last and a half volumes, singular volumes in these. Again, it does help that I know that this is a very slow burn. I think it's a series I'm taking more days to read. Usually I try to rush through with a bit less, just because I know that a lot is shown rather than told. There is a lot of just in the art, and I do know that eventually, you know, taking the time that the author or the mangaka is taking with these will pay off. But some volumes, at times, like the first volume of this was like, yeah, okay, it's okay. Some other volumes are like, oh, I really like this. I don't think I'm at a point where I am in love with it, or like I can say it's one of my favorite series. It's very good, but it's not up to, you know, for now, but again, I've just read a few volumes of his, is not among my favorites, but I know that it has a lot of potentials, and I do feel like although this volume felt quite slow, quite more like, you know, it's prepping things up for further dynamics and plot points they're gonna develop from it. I think the main character has made the most progress character-wise, has developed the most, has reached the next level in these. And again, we're gonna see what he does with it in the next volumes. And number 2, I have Hellboy Volume 1. I reread actually, because I had read this before. This stunning library edition of Hellboy. I didn't remember anything from the first time I read it. I remember a couple of panels. I do know the general story of Hellboy, but a lot of nuances I had, you know, lost with time, and so it was so good for me to revisit these. So now I'm feeling more ready to go on, and I like how, you know, each volume you kind of have a contained plot in a sense. So you go there, you know, you fix this paranormal or, you know, horrific crime has been committed, or you find out what's been happening, but then there is an overarching plot thus far, and the enemies are recurring enemies, and so I really enjoyed that. And another thing I enjoyed about this, and I have forgotten this kind of way of recounting the story of Hellboy and his adventures, is how you really get Hellboy point of view, like his commentary to his own adventures. I really enjoyed that style, and I really enjoy Hellboy as a main character. I've read more complex main characters. Even the storytelling, he is pretty much like, you know, I don't know, it feels not superficial level, because I don't want to be like, don't want to sound negative, but it feels like the right amount of depth for, you know, a more morally great character, for someone who's beginning to read about morally great characters or stories that have more nuances than just the hero battling the bad guys. But it doesn't feel like it goes into much depth. Like I've read more nuanced, more introspective characters. So the way the story is told is very compelling, it's very entertaining, it has some nice quotes here and there, but it doesn't go to certain depth that might be more used from, I don't know, series like Berserk, or whether it's about, you know, the darkness of humanity, or whether it's the case. So I think like this is the entry level, the depth of human despair and how human can be horrible, if it makes sense. That's the vibe I had, but again, I'm just at the first 2 volumes, so there is room to grow and change for Hellboy, and the storytelling maybe won't change. I'm okay with it, I'm enjoying it, it's entertaining. And on number 1, there's no surprise, it's always been number 1. It won't be anymore because there are no more volumes out, but it's Monstrous. It has been Monstrous for months now. As Berserk was the highlight of last year, Monsters has been the highlight of this year. How can I say? Monsters keeps getting better, and I consumed this volume in a few, like maybe an hour or so, and I was obsessed with it. I went online, checked if the author and the artist had made more stuff, and I did find another series by then that I do want to check out. Some of the art. I think for a series that started, and when I started this series I was feeling very lukewarm. I was feeling like, okay, I don't get the hype, like this is so cool, like to see, like visually it's so appealing, like it's so rewarding. But the story, I don't know if I'm on board, to now me becoming obsessed and just say, you need to read Monsters, you need to get to volume 3 before I think the full impact of the story comes through. I think it's a bit like a manga series where you have to give a few volumes. I think with Monsters is the same. The more you're gonna read, the more you're gonna be invested, the more it's gonna become clear who's who, what has been happening, who's done what. With this volume we get a lot of answers, and so I don't know, I really liked how now the cast of characters, which is big but not too big, like I think the main characters you probably follow less than 10 people, I believe so. Center part is probably like 3 to 4 people. How now all threats are coming together. I became very attached to them. So while the stake got higher and higher, and you know, things got more brutal and intense, I felt way more attached to all of them. I think like this was such a good volume, one of my favorite volumes ever. Of Monsters, of course. So I think like it goes up and up and up. Each volume improves and improves and improves up until this point. So I really hope that the quality stays the same, and I do also hope that if I can't, I mean, this feels like a series that you can go on forever. Like it's a series where you could have 20 volumes in order to really spam out properly all the threads of the story, to just cover all the points and all the character plots. However, because they start now, I don't know if I go on a hiatus or whether it's the case, so I would like to have more answers on what are the plans for the authors, because they created such a big world, and now I would feel very disappointed if I were just like to wrap it up in another volume or so. It doesn't feel like something you can wrap up that quickly, but at the same time, if you don't want to do it anymore, then do wrap it up. Like just don't put this on a hiatus forever. The idea of waiting years before I can actually have like 3-4 volumes to go through, it's appalling to me. This feels epic. This was epic, and I genuinely think if you like grimdark, you will love Monstrous. Just give it a few volumes. And then let's chat in the comments down below if you've read Monstrous. I would love to know. But yeah, guys, unfortunately, this is all I've read. I mean, unfortunately, it was a good reading month. Didn't read as much as usual, but I won't complain. I'm still happy with what I read. Let me know what was your favorite read of the month, and in the comments down below, if you're new, I would love for you to subscribe. I'll see you next time. Take care of yourself. Ciao!